follow your passion, but always bring it with you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nerdy Optometrist, a podcast channel for all things optometry. And this is your host, Vora. Just as all of you know, that you have to remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel on all your favorite platforms. And before we start at talking about the episode, I would like to give a huge shout out to the supporter of this episode, Torch It, which is a Government of India aided social startup that works towards upliftment and empowerment of differently abled community to help them realize their dreams of living their lives with a feeling of independence. Their assistive aids designed for blind and differently abled people have been used for people not just in India, but even across Africa, South Korea, and US. I'll be dropping their link in the description. Do definitely check it out. Now, talking about my guest for today, when I said in the introduction, right, like you need to bring your passion with you, I have someone who has carried that flag for, I would say, years now. She's a great friend. She is a great inspiration. And I'm going to try my best to do a brief introduction of everything that she's done and achieved. A very warm welcome to Maruee Pahuja. She is a specialty contact lens consultant, ocularist, visual art, and expressive art practitioner. Yes, we're going to dig into all of that. Hold your horses because we have a lot more to discuss and discover. She heads the optometry department at Natasha Eye Care and Research Center in India. As a specialty contact lens consultant, she's the only practicing optometrist in India to have the fellowship from Scleral Lens Education Society. Maruee has achieved another prestigious fellowships from the British Contact Lens Association and more recently from the International Association of Contact Lens Educators. Having a passion to educate and upskill her knowledge, Maruee has presented in many national and international ophthalmic and optometry conferences. She's extremely learned about facilitating leadership and peace building workshops, keeping arts at the center to learn, grow, and heal. She has written a book. Yeah, I mean, just when you thought, she has done it enough, she's already written a book called Beyond Trauma, A Journey to Healing with IOFC USA. She volunteers with different international organizations like Initiatives of Change and People Beyond Borders, School of Conscious Politics, and is currently also a research assistant at Step Ahead Berlin. Her passion, curiosity, and research are directed toward building a holistic healthcare system that incorporates healing of body, mind, and soul through multiple modalities incorporating conventional medicine. There is a lot to learn from her, and I'm so excited to have her as part of this podcast. A very warm welcome to the Nerdy family.
Thank you so much, Upti. This is a really, really warm welcome, and I am my heart is fluttering with joy just listening to you say all of these things. Thank you for the invitation, and I am looking forward to our talk today.
Wonderful. So as your introduction says, like it's filled with a lot of love, passion, and I've known you as a person as well for quite some years now. But I don't know how your journey started. I do know you have some family background in eye care, but tell us, how did your interest in optometry started?
So I feel like growing in a science-oriented background, my implied implication actually was doing a science-based work, which is I saw my parents take care of a hospital and eye care practice, and therefore I decided, okay, this is a chosen path for me. This is the right way to go. And there were like a lot of optom interns who used to come to the hospital, and when I saw them, I was like, okay, this is something that I feel inclined to do in science, and I chose to go ahead with it. And I did my bachelor's from Bharati Vidyapeeth, and I finished in 2014. But there was always a part of my heart and soul that belonged to the arts. And there was this sense of connection that I felt with the arts. And I kind of had to respond to that calling. I believe, after finishing my bachelor's, there was this a random day where I just picked up colors, and it was this sense of coming back to my inner child and feeling that connection that I had with me as a child. And therefore I decided to, okay, let's go ahead with learning a little more about visual arts. And the journey has continued since 2015 until now, and it's ever growing. And there has been an exploration of so many visual artist fields of exploring all of these different mediums and modalities of art. After which there was this learning about, oh, this has a therapeutic benefit. I feel like there's a mindfulness based artistic practice that's happening here for me personally. And being a living, breathing example of that, I was like, I'm sure there is something to study about this, and it should be practiced widely. So I started exploring how can art be used in a therapeutic manner. So I found out about expressive arts therapy, and I started studying my master's in expressive arts therapy. I did a few courses in India, the certification courses, and it continued to Berlin, and now it's either with an institute in Switzerland or with United States.
I mean, this is so inspiring. And I had mentioned this in my introduction as well. Like, you did, even though you say, like, an optometrist or optometry was a chosen path for you coming from the family, I really loved how you explored your own passion. And you didn't, I really love that saying because I felt it reflects your personality, that you don't follow it, you carry it with you. And that's what you did. Like, you had two passions. One was optometry and eye care. That's what you grew up with, but you also had your own calling, which is art. And you've done a great job of using it even in optometry, because you talk about expressive art and visual art, but you're also an ocularist, where you use your art love in helping patients who need that for eye care. And that's very interesting because there are not many people who go that route, right? Was that journey a little How was that journey? Was it difficult? Was it easy? Was it a calling thing?
I feel like it was just designed in the rightful manner for me. I wouldn't say it was difficult, but it had its own set of challenges, because when you see the herd follow something, you're always like, I want to belong, and that's the right way to go about it. Also hearing everyone follow a certain path and seeing yourself diversify, there was that sense of feeling a little lost in the process of which way should I go. And luckily there was ocularistry, which kind of combined both of my passions and brought a world for me that felt like, okay, this is something that makes perfect sense, because it has the right amount of eye care, it has the right amount of one of my passions, which is of being of service to society through eye care, and the other one being arts. And bringing both of these worlds together felt like the just right next for me when I was doing it. Also, I think for the longest time doing optometry at that time, I had no idea about ocularistry. I'm also grateful to having a background where I had all of this knowledge and learning about the various options that I could take in the field. So a huge shout out in this moment to my father. And he was the one to tell me that I feel like these are the two worlds that really bring out the best in you. So why don't you study ocularistry as well? And I was like, okay, let's go ahead with it and see what that kind of brings. And over the period of years, there was a learning about mental health, and I feel like it is the need of the hour. It is something that the world is desperately wanting at this point in time, with the stresses that we have with post-COVID, and with everything that has happened in the world, with all the traumas that we have. So there was a combination of mental well-being and arts that also brought in these two worlds together, of how can arts be a part of mental well-being, keeping arts at the center of everything that I do.
I think that is wonderful. And like again, a huge shout out to your dad as well for understanding where your passions are, giving you advice of what is the right path for you to explore, and supporting you, because that's huge. And to everyone listening to this episode, like, I feel optometry is extremely diverse, and I keep saying this or in most of my episodes, that whatever your passion is, even if you feel like just seeing patients is not something that I enjoy, but I also would like to add something more to it, whether it is, being part of technology, being part of art, being part of like, designing something. There are so many things that you can do. Becoming an entrepreneur, there are so many things that you can do along with optometry. So please do not restrict yourself to just the set path that you see everybody following. Try to explore, give yourself some time, do whatever is needed to at least give it a genuine chance than just giving it up thinking it probably it's not where the herd is going.
I am a living, breathing example of this, honestly. There was this, I remember a part of the journey where I was like, okay, I don't think this is serving my heart in the right way. I should probably step out and explore something else. But I'm so glad that I stuck with it, because what I'm able to practice in this day and age and be able to have a niche and a specialty and in visually rehabilitating patients and aesthetically rehabilitating patients, the sense of satisfaction it gives me. Of course, there is so much more out there in the world, and there's, like we were talking about, the grass is greener on the other side, and it feels like, hey, that seems exciting, but there is so much opportunity here that having the right mentor and guide is such an important aspect of finding that spark in you and finding the intersection between the worlds that make sense to your own soul.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I really love, how you try to even incorporate like mental health and what you like and passion in everything that you're trying to, share in this episode, because I definitely feel we need to talk about those things, the mental struggles, because sometimes you just do things because that's what you know or that's what you've been taught to. But it's also important to listen to yourself. Are you really enjoying it? And if you don't, take a risk, take a calculated risk, a more aware risk by like talking to people, being well informed, but give yourself a chance and step out there. And I do know there was this one thing that I know we've discussed maybe a couple of years ago, because you're doing so much in expressive art and like visual art and all those things that you're working on with all your collaborations. People started questioning, are you really practicing optometry or you've given it up?
Yes.
I know we had this fun conversations. They're like, no, I'm still very much in optometry.
Yes, I think there's a picture that's painted out on social media, right? Usually. So I put a lot of my lifestyle posts, and therefore a lot of people started thinking like, what is she up to? And because I also live in a little bubble of practicing just at my hospital, there was not a complete picture that people had of what I'm doing. And yes, to all of those people who are still wondering if I'm practicing optometry, I very much am, and happily so. So it's not something that's out of the picture and never will be.
That's good to know. And I know we laughed about it, and you were like, no, I do all of this. I do specialty contact lenses. I have my fellowships. I'm constantly upgrading my skills. And I think one thing that you mentioned earlier is very important of whatever your passion was, whatever you like, whether it was contact lenses, whether it was optometry, whether it was arts, you made sure that you were constantly upskilling your knowledge, right? You did masters. You just didn't paint and forget about it. Of course, people can do that if they like, but if you want to give your 100%, try to learn the best and the most in that space. What were your challenges there? Because now you're juggling two independent, I would say, careers, for people who are pursuing that. And now one is your passion project, one is your full-time work. How has that juggling and that process been? Has it been difficult? Has it been easy? What are your thoughts there?
I feel like I'm a learning junkie, and that kind of keeps me going. I'm addicted to it. So it's never been like I'm making an extra effort towards something. It just, a part of it comes also very naturally to me, because I like exploring, and I'm quite curious about learning to an extent that it can provide the best service to anyone that I'm working with, whether be it in an eye care setting or in a mental health setting. So it's about finding the best ways to be of service to the society. So the challenges really are, for me, how do I find intersections in these worlds? Because they're so far apart from each other. The challenge really is, how do I find a holistic way of combining arts and science
Mhm.
and bringing it to spaces, because I see benefits of both. I see that there are ways that each path is designed in a way to help individuals in their own specific manner. And I've worked with people individually in both fields, whether be it expressive arts, holding workshops, or be it visual rehabilitation through specialty contact lenses, or aesthetic rehabilitation through ocularistry. And feel like there is that need to be able to support patients or support individuals in both ways, because one might need both of these together. So the
Right.
challenge is really, how do I create a holistic system through this? The challenge also is sometimes is how do I stay self-motivated in all of these passions that I carry within me, and all of these uh, oceans that I've stepped my toes, I've put my toes into, and find a ground to stand on, because it's one of another leading this thought leading to another thought is also, there have been times where again, like I would say, one of the challenges also was, how does the world know that all of this can exist at the same time? Because there is a part of me that felt that, okay, people do not really know that I'm also practicing optometry, right? That
Right.
people in another part of the world don't know that I'm an optometrist, and a part of the world doesn't know that I'm an expressive arts practitioner or a visual artist. How do I even introduce myself? Like, who am I? What do I do? Because it takes like a second to say, okay, we usually introduce ourselves by saying that this is the work that I do.
Yeah.
We hold our identities so close to what we do in the world. So it's also, it takes me like a while to explain to the world, and I'm quite grateful to you to give me that space and time to tell one part of the world that, hey, this is also happening.
I think this is wonderful, and I would say this is a very good problem to have. That now you have like multiple identities, and you sometimes it can also feel like you are so much invested in one work or one thing, which is great, but you might want something else as well, which is like your own personal identity, right? Like your
Yeah.
work, I could be say an optometrist, but I'm an artist. Like that is who I am. That's what like my inner passion is, and optometry is my work, which I'm very passionate about, but it's not me. Like there are two different identities. Like I have a work identity, I have a personal identity, and I'm so happy that you have found both those things and you're able to excel, because I know like even I, to be honest, I don't know what other than optometry can I would put myself as like term myself into. So there are these ways where like people like me would say that we struggle to identify as something beyond what our work is. And I think this is very inspiring to learn from you that, hey, you can have multiple passions, you can follow your multiple dreams and excel in all of it just by, constantly trying to learn, constantly trying to grow at your own pace.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that out loud. I feel like we as humans are limitless. We have limitless possibilities, and being a creative person, that's something that comes naturally. Finding that limitlessness in the world and living up to the full human potential. I think so many times our brains tell us that, okay, there is no more,
Yeah.
but really there is, and there is so much scope to fulfill, that just responding to your heart's calling sometimes.
Absolutely. I actually read a very nice quote recently where it's like if someone tells you it is impossible for them and not for you. So,
Oh
it's
yes.
because we're listening from others and we believe what they say, but it could be not for you, but
Yeah.
for them. And I think it was a wonderful quote that I think we should think and stick to. But apart from all of this, like we talked about art, we talked about optometry. You are doing one very interesting initiative in eye care and in the industry is leadership as well. You are motivating and you are guiding young optometrists, fresh graduates, interns in your center to show them different possibilities, to connect them with leaders within the industry. Tell me a little more about your motivation, what is going on in that space.
So I believe the the deepest space it's coming from is I wish someone had told me that at that time. And it's the other part of it is therefore trying to serve that, bridge that gap. The other part of it is that I believe optometry is flourishing and changing. And like you said, it's diversifying and there's so many options. At especially a final year student, an intern would feel pretty lost at that point in time. What's my next step? What do I do after I finish, after I've graduated? So there is that sense of wanting to bridge that gap by telling them and connecting them with different optometrists and leaders around the world. It also comes from an inspiration of having facilitated a lot of leadership and communication workshops around the world. I see that it's optometry is not just about technical skills. It's so much about the right sense of communication. I think it can take you places in any field. And just like optometry, communication is such an important aspect of our field. And if we want to excel, or if we want to succeed or find ourselves out there standing and representing who we are, there needs to be a learning spectrum of leadership. And I believe that's something that we can take up as optometrists, as leaders in the world, to be able to give that guidance and support, provide that support system and that meshwork for young optometrists right now. If you're a good leader, I feel like you can excel in anything that you can step into. There is that need for self-leadership more than leading someone else. So the sessions and workshops happen weekly here at the clinic on communication and leadership skills with interns. We've also in the past organized conferences, online conferences for optometrists around India who wanted to learn more about what's their journey going to be like. But like I said, it really was coming from a space of, hey, I wish someone had told me that when I was younger. Luckily, I had someone, but I also see so many people struggle with that that journey of what am I going to do what? And if that motivation comes from yourself and you've learned to be, if you learn to communicate, you've learned to guide your own journey, learn to center yourself and find that self-leadership, the path just is of discovery after that.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's funny that you said, this comes from the place I wish somebody would have said this. And my motivation to even start this podcast was the fact that people helped me to find my space when I was like completely new to this country. I reached out to people and they were very kind enough to guide me in the process. And I realized there were many people who have paved their own path. And I'm like, you know what, there should be a place where everyone can share. Everything is beautiful. Like, they're like, oh, wow, she's in US, she's enjoying. But it's important to tell like, hey, I had my own journey. Where can I share that? Like, just like you had your own journey. And I'm very sure many people will get inspired listening to, the way you are following your passion. It could not be art, it could be something different. But the point that you're trying to put is like, you have a safe space to express and tell like, you can do this. And that's the whole inspiration behind Nerdy Optometrist podcast, that we want to just capture people's journey. And maybe even if I can help like one person who has listened to this episode or any of my episodes and get inspired, I think my work is done there.
No, that's quite commendable, Ukti. I have to say, like, they're creating a safe space in a world where there is absolutely somebody even doesn't even speak about it, and to create that space of inspiration, of growth, of learning, of hearing people's stories, because so much of it comes from stories, and create like building that path for yourself. It's so commendable, and I am inspired and truly honored to be a friend of yours.
Thank you so much. You're being too kind. But tell me, when you're doing like, this is something that I would like everybody to understand, that when I'm sure you would agree to it as well. Like when we try to do something like this to help others, we get 10 times more than what we put out. Do you feel the same?
Absolutely, a heart of service is everything. Like there's like giving is there's more when you give than when you ask for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I have learned throughout this journey of my podcasting, where I had no idea what podcast was, I think this has been phenomenal. Like, to just learn from everyone, from everybody's journey. So now I do know that we did talk about like your motivation and you did highlight some of the major roadblocks. But is there anything that you wish, because we are on the topic of, you wish someone would have said that earlier when you were at a low point of you not knowing what to do? Were there any major roadblocks or anything that you would like to highlight that helped you keep going?
I would say that when this would be like going back to when I was quite young and just figuring out which path to take. If at the age of 16, 17, somebody had told me, hey, you enjoy arts, why don't you continue that as well and find find a stability through another profession, and you can do both together, because there was so much time even at that time with my studies and everything. I feel like at that point, being inspired and knowing that there is that scope of doing so much in the world, and that the sky's the limit, and I can go ahead and enjoy both parts of uh, the story and live my full potential. So believe, I wouldn't call it a roadblock, but it's like if I go back in time, that's something that I would think sometimes that would be different. But at the same time, there's a part of me that believes I'm here in the right moment at the right time, in the right space. So it's just the universe conspired it to be a certain way, and I'm so glad the journey turned out the way it did in its own time. So yeah, I wouldn't say that there were roadblocks as much as the limitations of the mind, of my own mind, because of hearing narratives of the world
Yeah,
and taking on those narratives of the world rather than
as
listening
reality.
to,
Yeah.
exactly, rather than just listening to what is right for me and what makes sense to me. There was a lot of influence and words and talks of everybody else happening in my head rather than just listening to my own voice and finding that center. So that has been an ever blooming challenge, and sometimes it shuts down as well. So I find my ways to cope with it. But yeah, that's about it. Not a roadblock, but a little bit of journeying through various ways.
I loved it. We all go. I'm sure 100%. I'm sure everybody goes through this. Like we end up in a certain place or situation just because we were listening to others and we're not listening to what our passion or our heart said. But now I know we did talk a lot about art, optometry, about your journey. But now I would like to jump into my fun segment, which is a rapid fire. It's very simple, very quick. The rules are: I'll ask you a question, you have to tell me the quickest answer. Are you ready for it?
Yes, let's do it.
Perfect. So to begin with, which is your favorite destination?
California.
All right, welcome to the California. I like that. Okay. Apart from art and like optometry, okay, something else that you do during your downtime.
Gardening.
Gardening, wonderful. One thing that people don't know about you. It's a
That
rapid.
I like sleeping a lot.
Okay. Your favorite cuisine.
um, Indian,
Indian,
South
one.
Indian specifically.
South Indian. Okay, love that. For those people who don't know, like just look up like dosas, at least in South Indian food. I think they're amazing. We love that. If you were to interview a guest, dead or alive, who would that be, and what would the question be?
Oh, I would definitely interview Carl Sagan.
Mhm.
I would ask him what is it that inspired him to learn so much about the universe.
All right, wonderful. If we were to write an autobiography about your journey, what would you like the title to be?
Go with the flow.
Go with the flow. Okay, love that. If you could change one thing, it could be you can add, delete, or change anything in the eye care industry. What would that be?
Mm, I think that's not a rapid fire question. That is a deep question, a reflective one. I would
What's your
want to
first thing
be,
that comes to your mind? That's why it's rapid fire.
I would like to be able to create more awareness about optometry, and I would like to create more awareness about the specialty fields and the niche areas that would be able to serve patients and give them the full spectrum of treatment.
Got it. Wonderful. And you did great in the rapid fire. Good job.
Yay!
All right. Now, before we end this episode, one final takeaway message.
I would say something that we've been talking about is like pave your own path, listen to your calling, and you have a path that's specifically designed for you, and it will have its hurdles and its own challenges. Something that I saw the other day was like the bigger the object is, the bigger the shadow it's going to cast. So the bigger your dream is, the bigger the shadow is going to be. And you need to overcome and find your way through that shadow and find your own light within to be able to achieve the fullness of your dream and dream big.
Love it. I feel so inspired after listening to this episode and talking to you about this. So thank you once again for your time and for inspiring us. It has been a wonderful discussion. A huge shout out to the supporter of this episode, Torchit. I'll be dropping their links in the description. Also, feel free to reach out to Maruee because she's an amazing person to learn more about her work and just follow your passion. With that, thank you so much for your time, and everyone do make sure that you leave us a review if you've enjoyed this episode.
Thank you so much, Ukti. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and the inspiration is quite mutual, and it's what you're doing is amazing. Thank you for inspiring all of us, and all the best for all the coming endeavors that you take.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.